Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week, just a short video about one specific artist. You can see the artist on screen. It's Edward Manet, not to be confused with Claude Monet. Manet was a bit older than the Impressionists like Monet, although they did know each other and they did influence each other to some extent. It's said that Manet, who had become sort of famous, I guess, a little bit, when Claude Monet started to appear on the scene, Manet said, "Who is this young man and why is he stealing my name?" They are sometimes confused. Manet is, well, maybe why talk about Manet now? Well, I was thinking about making a video, but last week or the week before there was a fire in London. What's that got to do with anything? Well, the fire was at a place called Somerset House, which includes an important art collection, the Courtauld Gallery collection, that includes a lot of paintings from the period that I like the most, sort of from Manet through to the end of the 19th century, so including Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Neo-Impressionism, those sorts of things. They have a lot of quite famous paintings. They have probably one of the biggest collections of Cézanne paintings outside of France. They have famous Van Gogh paintings, including his self-portrait with the bandaged ear, probably one of his most famous self-portraits. They have this painting that you can see on screen by Manet, the Bar Folie Bergère, which is probably the last major painting that Manet completed. Luckily, the fire didn't damage any of the paintings. It was quite a major fire. There was about 125 firefighters at the scene, but the paintings apparently survived. I guess it's good to have these collections of important paintings together and on view for the public and things, but there's also the danger that if something like a fire happens, it could wipe out a lot of important paintings. So anyway, this is why I decided to go ahead this week, do the little video that I wanted to do on Edward Manet. So Manet is sometimes considered the first modern artist. One of the reasons why I like him. To quote Churchill a little bit, or to paraphrase Churchill, you could describe Edward Manet as a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. He was a lot of contradictions. He wanted to be a modern artist. He wanted to experiment and push the envelope of what was accepted in art at the time. At that time, the salon in France really controlled art. If you wanted to be a professional artist, you had to be accepted by the salon into one of their exhibitions, which meant you had to paint in a way that was acceptable to them. It was a juried exhibition, and it was basically a bunch of gatekeepers who would decide what art was acceptable and what was not. And they had quite narrow views on what was acceptable. Manet wanted to be accepted by them. He wanted his paintings to be shown in salon exhibitions, but at the same time he wanted to experiment and push that envelope and try something different. So that's the sort of contradiction with Manet. One of Manet's first attempts, or maybe his first attempt at getting into the salon exhibition, was the little painting on the left that you can see. I think it's just called the Absinthe Drinker. On the right, you can see a sort of, I guess, somewhat typical example of the type of paintings the salon wanted. They wanted paintings that were very finished. They wanted big paintings very often. The subject matter had to be historical, religious, mythological, those sort of things. You couldn't just go and paint a landscape. You couldn't just go and paint an ordinary person, which is what Manet did for his absinthe drinker. This was just a guy, a very poor guy, who was also perhaps a bit of an alcoholic. And the fact that it was just an ordinary working class person who liked to drink was just not the sort of thing that the salon considered acceptable. So Manet's painting was rejected. And he took rejection really personally. In that sense, he was a little bit oversensitive, perhaps a little bit thin-skinned, but he didn't like rejection, and it impacted him really badly. But he did go on. He did succeed on a few occasions of getting some of his paintings accepted into the salon. I guess enough that he was able to make something of a name for himself as a painter. He was, as I said earlier, he was sort of influenced by Impressionism, and the Impressionists were somewhat influenced by him as well. Some of my favorite pieces of art by Manet are not the big famous paintings, but some of his little sketches and things. And I think the one on the left, the woman with the hat, maybe walking through a garden, I think in this little sketch, this little, I guess, oil paint sketch, you can see some similarity with Impressionism, I think. The color scheme, the loose brushwork. It could have been painted by Manet or Pissarro or Alfred Sisley or any one of those sort of Impressionist painters, I think. So there was definitely a bit of to and fro, a bit of influence in both directions with Manet and the Impressionists, although he, as far as I remember, he never exhibited with the Impressionists, and he wasn't considered one of the Impressionists. I also like his sort of pen and ink sketches, and you can see three more: a woman writing something, maybe writing a letter, a group of men in a Parisian cafe, and this, I guess, clown or performer dancing in a sort of clown costume. I like his sketches, not just his big paintings, but sometimes I think it's worth looking at, the little sketches, the sketchbooks and things that do survive from famous artists. And if you want to do a study of these sort of things, I think these are good places to start. Not the big paintings, that's a bit ambitious. If you want to practice by copying a famous artist, maybe one of their little sketches like this is a good place to start, in my opinion. So last, one of the things that Manet is famous for is his floral still lifes. And a lot of people consider some of his floral still lifes to be amongst the best flower paintings that have ever been produced. I would tend to agree. I like the colors, the brightness. I like the simplicity of a lot of his floral still lifes. If compared to some of the other things that were around at that time, if you think of it as food, I think Manet's floral still lifes is like a bowl of soup with some bread. It's simple, but it's wholesome, it's delicious, it's nice. And it's not too heavy. Some of the other paintings around at the time, they were very decadent. They were like a 6-course meal. You look at them and you come away feeling a bit heavy, a bit overwhelmed by it all. But these little paintings, I think the simplicity of the paintings is one of their strong points. So he is well known for this, and these paintings were done towards the end of his life. He did die quite young. I think he was in 51 or 52, something like that, early 50s. So given that he was a little bit later getting started and he died quite young, his actual art career was quite short. But anyway, interesting artist, perhaps the first modern artist, a bit of a contradiction in some ways, and he had this influence and connection with the Impressionist artist. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching and listening, and hopefully see you again in next week's video.